My roommate had just moved out. My grandfather had just died, and my girlfriend, God bless her heart, had just dumped me in a park, all in the same week. And I remember this beautiful summer day completely alone, and I just got in the shower and I started crying. And then the crying turned into something else, this ugly, hysterical sobbing, hyperventilating, the disgusting kind where you can't breathe. And I screamed out loud with the door open, "Why is everyone leaving me?" And I wanted an answer. I waited for one. But nobody came. Nothing happened. It was just the sound of the shower and my own voice bouncing off the walls. And eventually I couldn't cry anymore. I couldn't yell for help. So I just sat there naked, wet, disgusting, defeated. And after a while, I started laughing because somehow I was still alive, still breathing. And somehow that was enough. And sitting there, I had this thought that genuinely changed how I see everything since. I was still okay. I was not happy. I was not fixed, but I was okay. And if I was okay after that, after my roommate and the grandfather and the girlfriend all leaving at once, then what exactly was I so afraid of this whole time? Because here's the thing about loneliness that nobody likes to talk about is that we spend most of our lives running from it. So we like to fill all these quiet moments with noise, with people and relationships and sex and porn, and that keeps us from having to sit alone with ourselves. And we call that connection. So yeah, the breakup didn't destroy me. It brought me back to earth, back to what my original state was. And I had gotten so high on the supply of other people, on having someone to call, someone to fuck, someone to help me fill the silence, that I think I'd lost track of who I was underneath all of that. And when it all disappeared, I found out. And I was still there. And I was still okay. Camus was a philosopher. And Camus argued that the fundamental human condition is absurdity. And I'm a big believer in this. He said that we exist in a universe with no answers for our most important questions. So when we scream into the void, nothing screams back. And it's a sad truth of being conscious that the world doesn't owe us an explanation. And his response to that wasn't to despair, it was rather acceptance. So basically you acknowledge the absurdity and you just have to sit with it and you keep going regardless. And that's not because it gets easier. It's just because the alternative of spending your whole life running away from the silence is so much worse than just being okay with it. So yeah, I screamed in the shower and nobody answered me. Not my roommate, not my grandfather, not my girlfriend, not God. And in that silence, I found something I hadn't expected, which was just me, still there, still breathing, still capable of laughing at how ridiculous the whole thing was. And I think that's what Camus meant, because that moment that you stop demanding an answer from this void is the moment that it stops terrifying you. And I figured out a lot since then that loneliness isn't the problem. Loneliness, I believe, is actually the pathway. Because every significant period of growth in my life has been accompanied by loneliness. Every time I've become more myself, more clear about what I actually want, more honest about who I am, I've also become lonelier. And because growth means moving sometimes without people. So you can't always take them with you. So you have to be okay with this. And yeah, the breakup was lonely. Leaving, my major and changing my career path was lonely, and cutting people off who weren't serving me is frequently lonely. I'm sure many of you experienced that. And even coming back from my 2 reconstructive joint surgeries, when people told me to give up and to quit, that was lonely because I was the only one that believed in myself. And every single one of those moments made me stronger. It actually made me who I am now. So I've stopped treating loneliness as the sign that something is wrong, and actually just a sign that something is changing and something is happening, or that's just the way that the universe works. And there was one thing in particular that changed my life. when I stopped running from being alone, and when I reluctantly just forced myself to sit with it, I started filling the space with things that were actually mine. MMA, making videos, creativity, self-care. And that was because these things weren't for someone else. It was genuinely about taking care of myself. And it made me become more dependent, not because I was stoic and emotionless. I was just more capable of being myself without needing someone else in the room to hold my hand. And people say this frequently, that I'm sure you've heard it, that you can't love someone without loving yourself first. And I know that sounds corny, but what I think that means is, and what I understand it to be, is that you can't truly be someone without first being okay alone. Because if you're with someone to escape loneliness, you're not actually with them. You're just using them as noise. So that shower moment taught me that I could survive the silence. And once you know that, the silence stops becoming something you fear and becomes something that you welcome. And the reason loneliness feels so catastrophic right now is that we've built this entire civilization designed to prevent us from ever sitting with it. Our phones, our social media, dating apps that let us swipe past people like they're just numbers. There's always something to fill that silence if you need to get it fixed. And so most people never develop a tolerance for it, and they don't have any idea like what's actually going on inside their heads when everything is quiet. And they never have that shower moment, and they go through their whole lives feeling terrified of being alone because they've never been alone long enough to figure out that it actually doesn't kill you. And that was the amazing realization that I had. I know it can sound like sad, but I feel like you should be encouraged by this because we are all fundamentally alone. We're inside our own heads. We're living our own experience that nobody else can fully access. And that's not a tragedy. It's just what consciousness is. And the more that you accept that, the more you stop fighting the basic fact of your own solitude, and the less lonely you will actually feel. Because the loneliness stops being something happening to you and starts being something that's just true. And with true things, you can actually work with them. And yeah, so I screamed in the shower. Nobody came. And I got out. I got dressed. I put my underwear on. I blew my nose, my boogers. I washed them off my face. And I laughed about it. And I was okay because of the absurdity of it. Because being alone is not a curse. And I promise you, you'll be okay too. Not because everything just magically gets better. Just because you're still in there. You're still here. And oftentimes, that's enough. And the lights went out. Perfect timing. Let me know what you think. Do you ever feel alone? What is your solution to this? How do you work around it? Drop a comment below. Kudos.